Hey guys, Art Decline, Average Picker. So I'm going to put this in rambling advice for new pickers playlist, even though I'm going to try not to ramble too much. But I've seen this come up a few times on the subreddit, and it's where new pickers get frustrated, essentially, and then potentially quit. And that always kind of saddens me because I hate to see people just quit out of sheer frustration. But I think there's a few things going on that maybe we can talk about. The first is realize you're going to get frustrated. It's going to happen all the time. You're going to be it's peaks and valleys with this thing. Hopefully, you're always getting better, but you've always got these dips, and you're always going to hit these periods. Everyone will attest to it, where you just feel like you can't pick anything anymore. And I don't honestly. I think we all have different ways of dealing with that. I tend to just set the picks down and leave it alone for a minute. Maybe a day or a couple days and come back to it and try to see. Other times though, I've also just picked through the frustration. I just have sat and just kept plugging away at it. But it's just one of those things that's going to happen to you. However, when you're starting out, also you have a limited number of locks. Usually, you may only have one, or you might only have like three. And this gets mentioned a lot about muscle memory. And what that essentially means is you kind of subconsciously develop a feel for that one particular lock and how to pick it. So if all you've got is a master 3, the first time it might take you 15, 20 minutes, it might take you a day, but you get it, and then it gets faster and faster and faster, and you feel like the best picker in the world because you can pick that master 3 now in 2 seconds, and you can't wait to move on, and you step up into something like maybe a Brinks or something, and suddenly you can't pick it. You suck. And you try and you try and you try. Maybe you spend a week on it and you can't get it. You go back to your master 3 and you suck. You can't pick it either. And it's because you've kind of lost that muscle memory. You've been adjusting to the other lock. But besides developing a muscle memory for one particular lock, you can develop a muscle memory for a whole particular type of lock. And I think that gets a little overlooked. And so to give you an example of myself, as some of you who've watched these videos know, these are what I learned to pick on. And I quite literally can tell you I picked over 300 of these. And what I did was I got really, really good at picking these. And I felt like I was probably the best picker in the world. But what I had done was develop a muscle memory, not for this one particular lock, but I developed muscle memory for just these types of locks. And so what would happen was if I lined up like 20 of these, and then maybe I threw in a Quick, or what is this, a Gatehouse, a Defiant, something, and I had them all lined up, and I had maybe 3 or 4 other locks in the mix, I would nail through them, and suddenly I'm hung up on this basic Quick set. And there was no reason. It was frustrating because in my head there was no reason I shouldn't be able to get through the Quick set as quickly as I was getting through these guys. And that's correct. I mean, really, if you can pick one of these very quickly, you should be able to pick a basic Quick set fairly quickly. But what it was, I had developed a muscle memory for these types of locks, and anything that threw me out of that, all suddenly I couldn't pick. And then I would try to go back to these, but my kind of brain and everything had been adjusting to what I was now trying to do, and suddenly these got a little more difficult, and that plays into this other aspect of it, is this kind of self-expectation. I mean, even if you throw me one of these, in my head I'm thinking, yeah, I should be able to get through that in no time, and if I don't get through it in 15, 20 seconds, I start going, oh no, what's going on? Because my self-expectation is that I should be able to pick that in no time at all. And you can be doing that the same with your own locks, especially when you have very few of them. So you develop some muscle memory, you move on to something that's a little difficult, you go back, and you've got this self-expectation that you can get through these master 3s, or whatever they are, in 4 seconds. And it takes you 7, you start getting a little frustrated with yourself. And then when you start doing that, you start making more mistakes, and it just kind of feeds and rolls on itself. So yeah, I would just say, for dealing with that kind of thing, I always think you have to, and I'm going to do a video on this probably later, but what are you picking for? And I think if you're trying to be just a good all-round picker, variety is really important. Don't worry about necessarily where locks rank and what's more difficult. Pick anything and everything when you're starting out that you can get your hands on, even if you feel like it's kind of beneath you or something, or at that point. The more locks you pick, the better. So, don't just, if you can pick 300 of these, by all means, pick 300 of those. But if you can also pick 300 of these, pick 300 of those, mix it all up. Because you need to get that muscle memory to kind of average out, and then start building on it from there. So, yeah, I would say just mix it up, pick as much as you can, and, do whatever, even if it means you've got to take the lock apart and, break your key for it, by repinning it in a different order. Do whatever you can to keep the variety as much as you can for yourself. That's going to help you become a better all-around picker, and it's going to alleviate that rolling frustration that may occur, especially as you acquire a few more locks and you start to shift up. And the other thing is, we talk about you don't have to live up to anyone else's expectations. You don't measure yourself by other people's videos and how quick they're doing it. But at the same time, don't necessarily throw it against yourself either. Like I said, those self-expectations, if you're not meeting that, that's okay. It'll get there. So, it sounds kind of funny to say don't live up to your own expectations, but, don't do that. I guess that is kind of what we're getting at. So pick a large variety, keep it as mixed up as you possibly can. More locks will come. They're not scarce. They'll come. Starting out, you're going to have only a few. So yeah, mix it up as best you can, and don't unduly or unnecessarily pressure yourself over your own expectations of what you think you should be able to do on a lock. And that's a hard thing to overcome, but it can cause you to kind of tumble into a frustration with it. So anyway, yeah, not so rambling advice, but it's been a minute since we've done that, and like I said, I'd seen the issue come up a few times in the subreddit, mostly very new pickers, probably in the 3 to 5 locks range, and just thought I would make a short little video to kind of talk about it and address it. So there we go. All right, guys, got some other stuff to crank out. I don't know if it's going to happen today. We'll see.